The following is presented by the Cheeky Bastards.
Brace for impact, buckaroos, because your skulls are about to take a gargantuan blast of action-packed jackassery to the fucking ear holes. And audio exposure so mind-numbing extreme protective headwear should be mandatory to listen to this level of inane horseshit. So lock and load, buttercups, and prepare your tiny minds for your monthly assault of grade A action movie mayhem, filled with enough high-octane carnage, insane shootouts, and nose-busting fisticuffs that Michael Bay himself would weep like the little product placement bitch that he is. Now duck and cover, my little cupcakes, because it's time for the Men of Action podcast, a show packed with enough testosterone-filled bravado it could take down a small nation. So here are your hosts, those cheeky bastards themselves. From America, it's the notorious Scott K, and from England, it's the cynical Mr. Smith. They may be C-grade meat, but you can bet your ass they're packing some serious fucking heat. Shit's about to get explosive.
Heidi-ho, you slag-jawed sons of bitches, and welcome to the Men of Action podcast. I am the notorious Scott K.
And my name is Mr. Smith.
And we will be your cheeky, cantankerous, opinionated hosts on this monthly action-filled quest as we pit two kick-ass action movie sequels up against one another in a no-holds-barred to the motherfucking death. To not only see which one truly reigns supreme, but if either is actually worthy of being a fucking sequel in the first place. On tap for you this month is an action-adventure sequel showdown as 1984's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom squares off against 2001's The Mummy Returns. But before Steve plays grab-ass with a young Asian boy across the jungles of India and I follow some hallucinogenic broad on a pyramid tour of Egypt, it is my pleasure to welcome in my cheeky co-host, Mr. Steve Smith.
Hello. How are we?
Well, Mr. Smith, we find ourselves in one of my least favorite genres of action, or should I say one of my least favorite genre for sequels.
Fair.
I feel a lot of the movies in this action adventure, whether we're talking about today's movies or we're talking about even Jurassic Parks, because those are action adventures, or we're talking about the Tomb Raiders, or even Nicolas Cage when he's stealing the Declaration of Independence, the first one out the gate is usually pretty good. Like the reason that we make sequels often because the first one is usually pretty well received.
Yeah.
And as we get into today's discussion, they don't seem to be able to take that momentum with them into the sequels, and some even keep making franchises out of it, which is interesting. But I think that today is my day to be curmudgeonly. I think today the roles are shifting. I think today, especially for both movies, I may not be huge fans of either, but that being said, you know, we are children of the 80s, and this genre of action was really brought back to life. I know as we talk about, especially our first movie, when we're talking about Spielberg and Lucas, this is their interpretation of the films of their youth, of the serials from their youth, and they're bringing them to life.
The TV serial type.
Which is totally fine. And then it became something that we knew as we were growing up. So they kind of brought it and gave it to us.
Yeah.
And some were, like I said, fantastic. I mean, I know you don't like the Goonies, but the Goonies is basically an action adventure for kids.
And that's the same era, right?
Same era, 1980s.
We're
yeah,
talking,
early 80s. Yep.
you know, at this particular point in time, from my memory as a kid. So when Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom came out, I was 12.
Yep. Okay.
And at that age, from my memory, which is a long time ago, but that is when I was starting to get into films, because that was when I was allowed to go out on my own. You know, when you get to that age, you're allowed to, at the weekend, you go on your own with your buddies and you can hang out with your friends. And I used to go to the cinema, and films like Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Goonies, Temple of Doom. I'm sure I'm forgetting quite a few. There was a lot more for our age, for that age group then.
Yeah,
I think, you know, for a young teenager. Whereas now I don't think you really get those kind of movies.
It wouldn't play for these because kids aren't active outside. I mean, that's not an attack on younger generations. It's just
culturally,
we were latchkey kids. We come from, I mean, and our generation we're at the tail end of what would be from, you know, whenever everyone gets back from World War II on, kids play outside. Like our boomer parents played outside. The early Gen Xers played outside. Us towards the middle end of Gen X play outside. And then even some of the millennials, or, you know, early millennials had the same thing. But now my kids, not that they played outside, but we're starting to get more and more kids staying indoors. Right. And adventure is starting to disappear, even in kids' movies. Like my kids are, I think they're Gen Y or something like or Z, something like this. I don't know what they are. But they have like Robert Rodriguez, and his movies like Shark Boy and Lava
Spy
Girl or
Kids.
the Spy Kids. So it was a little different, but they
was
still had
still-
some
yeah.
kid action
'cause
adventures
going back
that's
to-
really
Yeah, going back
disappearing.
to what I was saying about when I was a kid, I distinctly remember I would go and see Temple of Doom, Back to the Future. I'd go back and see him multiple times at the cinema. So I was really getting a feel for cinema and really beginning to sort of really get into it. I even went to see James Bond: A View to a Kill, one of the worst James Bond movies, multiple times, because it was more about I was finding my feet and I was just loving the idea of being in a cinema without my mum and dad, just hanging out and just
I think we discussed when we talked about the Beastmaster as a kid. Holy shit, that thing's an Oscar-worthy movie. In our opinion, when we were little.
Absolutely.
As we got older, we look back at it and you're kind of like, okay,
But no, you're right.
it's some
You're
flaws.
absolutely right.
Yeah, when you're younger, you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
It's just that there was such an excitement because I think Raiders of the Lost Ark, I was a little bit too young because I guess I would have been like 10 maybe. I wouldn't have been able to go and see it on my own. So I think I didn't see that till home video, but I did see it a lot, and I've seen that movie a lot. But yeah, there was just the 80s, I mean, I know we're old fucks and everything, but
we are. Hey, but you know what? I wouldn't change it. I love where we grew up in. I wouldn't change it for anything. I just wish we hadn't gone so fucking fast.
We had a lot of great stuff back then. And yeah, there is that sort of feeling of where did they all go? Where did these movies go?
Yeah.
We don't get those adventures now, which I think is a real shame.
Well, before Steve and I get too emotional on our trip back in time to a bygone era, it is time for us to light the fucking fires and kick the tires on this main event.
And now the moment you've all been waiting for, our action-adventure sequel Showdown main event. In the red corner is the 1984 action-adventure Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And in the blue corner is the 2001 action-adventure The Mummy Returns. So get ready for a no-holds-barred head-to-head collision of two action-adventure sequel stalwarts. Two movies enter, only one movie leaves. It's time for the Men of Action movie face-off.
Let's get ready to rumble!
This season, as you know, we've been taking a look at some of the numbers behind each of the franchises we discussed. And up first this month is the Indiana Jones franchise. To date, the Indiana Jones franchise has 5 installments and a spin-off TV series. Indiana Jones was created by George Lucas and Philip Kaufman, with Raiders of the Lost Ark debuting in 1981. And from that point on, we added the Indiana Jones and moniker before all the adventures, starting with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in 1984, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in 1989, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 2008, and just 2 years ago, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in 2023. A prequel television series based on the adventures of a young Indiana Jones entitled The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles ran on ABC here in America from 1992 to 93 with a total of 28 episodes and 4 TV films. This franchise has a total of 62 novels, a comic book series, 23 video games, and a theme park ride associated with it. We're going to find that these two franchises are some of the biggest we've ever done as far as the expanse of its universe beyond just the fucking film series. The franchise has had 2 directors, with Steven Spielberg helming the first 4 films. The Indiana films to date have been made on a total budget of $679 million, with a worldwide box office of $2.3 billion. The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, surprisingly, is the highest grossing film of the franchise so far, with $790.6 million at the box office, while the original Indiana Jones holds the highest IMDb rating with an 8.4. Up next is the Mummy franchise. Now, to date, the Mummy franchise has 10 installments, with an 11th planned for a 2026 release. A spin-off franchise centered on Scorpion King with 5 films under its belt and an animated TV series. The Mummy was created by Nina Wilcox Putnam and Richard Schaer. The Mummy, we're going to focus on the 3 Mummy trilogy that was the reboot, so we'll just talk about those and not the ones from the 30s through the 50s.
And not the fucking Tom Cruise one.
And not the, yes. So the Mummy came out in 1999, The Mummy Returns in 2001, and then The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor in 2008. The original Mummy series consists of 6 films starring the iconic monster actor Boris Karloff as the original Imhotep. The original series spanned from 1932 until 1955. In 1999, Stephen Sommers rebooted the franchise with a loose remake of the original 1932 Mummy. This series produced 3 films, with a 4th film being canceled before it went into production. The franchise has 2 video games, a comic book series, an animated TV series, and a theme park ride associated with it. Now, the Sommers reboot franchise has had 2 directors, with Stephen Sommers directing the first 2 films. The 3 reboot mummies to date have been made on a total budget of $323 million. And my memory serves me, this is the first time that both franchises, and this is just the money made alone by this 3, have both broken $1 billion, with the worldwide box office for The Mummy being $1.2 billion. Both franchises breaking the $1 billion mark. Pretty impressive. Now, The Mummy Return is the highest grossing film of this franchise, with $435 million at the box office, while The Mummy holds the highest IMDb rating with a 7.1. So, up first in the red corner, from our youth from 1984, it's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
It's time for the tale of the tape. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was released in 1984, written by William Huck and Gloria Katz, and directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Harrison Ford, Kate Capshaw, Ke-Huy Quan, Amish Puri, Roshan Seth, and Philip Stone. Made on a budget of $28.1 million and grossing $333.1 million at the box office. It holds a 7.5 rating on IMDb with a 77 critics and 82 audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On Letterboxd, Steve gives it 3.5 stars, while Scott gives it 2 stars. In 1935, Indiana Jones is tasked by Indian villagers with reclaiming a rock stolen from them by a secret cult beneath the catacombs of an ancient palace. In Paramount Pictures, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
The old legend of the Shankara stones. The villagers' sacred rock was taken.
Village stories, Dr. Jones.
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
I don't want to go! You know how to fly, don't you?
No. Do you?
You call him Dr. Jones. Hold on to your potatoes.
We got company!
Anna, lady, we're going for a ride.
Is he nuts?
He's no nuts. He's crazy.
I thought archaeologists were always funny little men searching for their mummies.
Mummies.
Mr. Smith, what did you dig up for us, Indiana Jones style, from the archives about this beloved franchise that may have been had all its creative juices drained out of it before we crossed into the 90s?
I'm going to talk fast because there's a lot of background, obviously. So Lawrence Kasdan of Raiders of the Lost Ark was asked to write the script for Temple of Doom and is quoted as saying, "I thought it was horrible. It's so mean. There's nothing pleasant about it. I think Temple of Doom represents chaotic period in both Lucas and Spielberg's lives, and the movie is very ugly and mean-spirited." Chris Columbus wrote a script for the movie in which Indiana Jones traveled to Africa and dueled a monkey prince. It was rejected because of too many negative African stereotypes, but a tank chase sequence in the script was later used in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Lucas hired Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz to write the script because of their knowledge of Indian culture. The duo also wrote American Graffiti and Howard the Duck, 2 other George Lucas projects. Lucas handed them a 20-page treatment in May 1982 titled Indiana Jones and the Temple of Death to adapt into the screenplay. Scenes such as the fight scene in Shanghai, the escape from the airplane, and the minecart chase came from earlier scripts of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The filmmakers were denied permission to film in North India due to the government finding elements of the script offensive, particularly the voodoo element with the thuggy cult. And the Indian government wanted changes to the script and to have the privilege of final cut of the movie. Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah,
Ballsy.
right. So the giant thuggy chief is played by Pat Roach, who also played the German mechanic fighting with Indy near the plane in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was meant to be something of a running joke in the series to have Roach's character fight with Indy and always losing, but his role in The Last Crusade was largely cut, and he died before Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was made. To save money, some of the interiors of Pankot Palace were just redress sets used for Kamal Khan's palace in the James Bond shitfest Octopussy, which was filmed the previous year at nearby Pinewood Studios. During production, the film was starting to go over budget, and Spielberg went to the writers and asked them to make changes to the script in order to save money. They removed one page from the script and saved $1 million. It was a planned air chase scene using vintage biplanes. The scene was removed from the film and was later incorporated into Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Steven Spielberg said he did not enjoy the film as much as the rest of the Indiana Jones films, but said it was a great experience for him because he met his future wife, Kate Capshaw, during the production. Apparently, Willie Scott, Kate Capshaw's character, screams a grand total of 71 times throughout the movie, as do we. According to Steven Spielberg, after I showed the film to George Lucas, at an hour and 55 minutes, we looked at each other, and the first thing we said was, too fast. We needed to decelerate the action. I did a few full matte shots to slow it down, putting breathing room back into it so there'd be 2-hour oxygen supply for the audience. Temple of Doom was released in May 23rd, 1984 in the United States, accumulating a record-breaking $45.7 million in its first week. The film went on to gross $333 million worldwide, with $180 million in North America and $153 million in other markets. The film had the highest opening weekend of 1984 and was that year's highest grossing film. It was also the 10th highest grossing film of all time during its release. In the United Kingdom, the film was almost given the 18 certificate due to the sacrificial sequence in the movie. To prevent this, the BBFC heavily cut the sequence to give it a final PG certificate. Among the cuts made were a sacrificial victim's head being ripped from his body and being lowered into the pit, a whipping sequence, and the removal of a man hitting his head on the side of a cliff. In 2012, the cuts were reinstated for the 2012 Blu-ray release, and the film was given a certificate of 12, age 12 and over, basically. Crikey. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom received mixed reviews upon its release, but over the years, the film's critical reception has improved. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 77%, based on 137 reviews, with an average rating of 7.4 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, "It may be too dark for some, but Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom remains an ingenious adventure spectacle that showcases one of Hollywood's finest filmmaking teams in vintage form." Roger Ebert gave the film a perfect 4-star rating, calling it one of the greatest bruised forearm movies ever made. You know what a bruised forearm movie is? That's the kind of movie where your date is always grabbing your forearm in a vice-like grip as unbearable excitement unfolds on the screen. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom makes no apologies for being exactly what it is: exhilarating, manic, wildly imaginative escapism. No apologies are necessary. This is the most cheerfully exciting, bizarre, goofy, romantic adventure movie since Raiders, which is probably true. And it is high praise to say that it's not so much a sequel as an equal. You stagger out with a silly grin and a bruised forearm, of course. The Observer described it as a thin, arch, graceless affair. The Guardian summarized it as a 2-hour series of none too carefully linked chase sequences. Sitting on the edge of your seat gives you a sore bum, but also a numb brain. And finally, none other than Quentin Tarantino is quoted as saying that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is his favorite of the series, as well as Spielberg's second best film behind Jaws. Spielberg pushes the envelope. He creates PG-13. That movie is so fucking badass, it created a new level in the MPAA. Something Brian De Palma's never been able to do as much as he's tried. Further adding, there is a comedy aspect as gruesome as the cinema is. There is an ultimate comedy aspect that's just not quite there as much in the first one. So there we have it. That is all I could glean from the history of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Well, I do not side with Tarantino on this. I think he is fucking off his fucking rocker if he thinks this is the second best film that Spielberg has ever done. I think sometimes he just likes to pick things that no one else does, so Good for
It's
him.
subjective,
I don't
man.
agree with Roger
It's
Ebert.
just-
It
it's-
is not sequel
it's
equal
subjective.
to Raiders. Not even close. However, we're not discussing the validity of this film between the other Indiana Jones movies. We're discussing it based on its merits as a sequel and up against its fellow competition, today being The Mummy
Yes.
Returns. Now, I first remember seeing this film as a kid. I mean, this is during a time when, oh man, it's hard to explain if you're not a Gen Xer. Like, I know this sounds like old men talking, which it is. But if you were not around during this part of the 80s, in 1980, we had Empire Strikes Back. The following summer, it's Raiders. In 1983, it's Jedi. In 84, it's Doom. It's just this period of time where, as a young kid, these were the movies of our youth. These were, I mean, Lucas and Spielberg, even though I'm not a huge fan of this film, as much as I am two of the others in this series, I mean, you couldn't escape it. We were enthralled. And this was summer movies at its best, especially as a kid. I mean, I feel bad sometimes. You know, here's what I'll say about what Tarantino said. It's a PG-13, and it probably is in 1984 a pretty
was pushing the
dangerous
envelope.
PG-13. We'll get into but the dinner scene is pretty wild. I mean, the pulling the heart out of their chest. Like, there's some things in there that we had not seen yet. You know, I'll extend an olive branch for that part of his comment, saying that, at a time in 1984, we were definitely, as kids, seeing things that we hadn't seen put into our films yet. Like, you know, you and I, as we have talked, we were latchkey kids. The VHS and the VCR were our fucking babysitters.
Absolutely.
And did we take full advantage of our parents not paying attention?
We saw a lot of shit we probably shouldn't have seen.
We saw shit coming out on cable and stuff that my parents did not have no idea that I saw. No clue. It was very exciting times. We didn't have porn, so I guess it's kind of like it was our porn. It was like we were able to see rated R movies for the first time, and no one was paying attention. You're kind of like, I'm getting away with this. It was very secretive. You're like, ooh, I've saw. You know, you'd be talking to your friends, have you seen this movie? You'd be like, well, how did you see this?
Yeah, I mean, the cultural difference here, of course, is we didn't have cable. So we had home. So that's why the home video boom was so big in the UK, was because we didn't have HBO or whatever the things were. I mean, but like I said earlier, see, this is the crazy thing. I went to see Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom maybe 3 times, which when you're a kid and you get $1 or £1 a week pocket money or whatever,
that's a lot. But that's a lot to see.
And I also remember I had a book on the making of the film. Even then, when you just don't. I mean, books in general, you don't really get now. But so I was obviously quite fascinated with Indiana Jones at that time. I loved Temple of Doom at the time, of course, but there was a lot going on for me as a 11, 12-year-old. You know, I was just starting to, what's going on. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. A lot of, speaking of forearm movies.
but
Different kind of forearm bruising.
I loved Temple of Doom at the time. And over the years, you get more, as you mature, you become more sophisticated and you realize there's elements that don't quite work for you. But I think nostalgia is an important part of your love of cinema.
100% agree.
It is important. You can't ignore it. We'll obviously we'll mention the other Indiana Jones movies at the end of the show. So I'm not going to go there. I used to love this movie. I loved this movie as a kid. There are some pretty incredible, even now though, comparatively with The Mummy Returns, there are some incredible action sequences. You know, the literal roller coaster ride that you get at the end.
Yeah.
The opening of the movie is a great action set piece with the musical going on, and he's clearly aping, and they're clearly aping James Bond.
I sometimes feel, and especially we're seeing this now in with adult eyes, it's as if Indiana Jones, there's a little bit of James Bond in him, as if Americans didn't understand the spies right away. That was kind of your thing until we get further down to the Jason Bourne and stuff like that comes on. Then it feels a little more American to us. So the James Bond was always a foreign entity. You know, we'd seen them, but it wasn't, it's not the cultural phenomenon it is when they come out in England.
Right.
And how important it is to pick the right person. So this did remind me a little bit of, and when you look back at Indiana Jones, they're trying to make it the Americanized version of what we would think a debonair. So I always think it's funny, like everyone who's it's like archaeologists suddenly become the sexy thing here in the 30s and 40s for like,
well, going back to
people.
what you said earlier about Lucas and Spielberg giving us an update of the films they grew up on. Well, they would have been watching the Bond movies in the 60s and 70s, no question. Well, I mean, they were making films in the 70s, but in the 60s, you had a lot of.
There's definitely some Ian Fleming character in
absolutely.
Indiana Jones.
So they would have been watching Dr. No and Goldfinger and all this stuff, and yeah.
And well, the fun too is that obviously this is written by Lucas,
right?
The original stuff, and then what makes it fun is he's adding in. So in the Raiders, on the Sanskrit columns there in the Ark, cut into it is R2-D2 and C-3PO. It's very brief. And here, the opening is the Obi-Wan Club. I just fucking, Club Obi-Wan is where they're at. But when you're a kid, you're not paying attention to that, right? Because you're just so like enamored with what's happening. Everything's moving so fast on screen. You're not paying attention to what's happening. And then as you get older, you can now sit and look at what's going on in the background. And then you're like, holy shit, it is Club Obi. Like, holy shit, how did I miss that? For every time I've ever fucking seen the film, how did I miss this? Yeah, so the opening is definitely a complete homage to the James Bond.
And it is pretty great. It is pretty great. And not only that, you follow that with another insane action sequence where they jump out of the airplane with the dinghy, with the inflatable boat. But what I was going to quickly point out, took out of my notes because my notes were so long, was that when George Lucas offered the Raiders of the Lost Ark to Spielberg, he said, I want you to direct this, but only if you direct the other two, which I've already written. And he hadn't. So when Spielberg came on board to do Temple of Doom, that was where problems immediately reared their head. That's not that they're not working without a script, but it's clearly like, shit, let's get moving. So, and that shows, I think. As this is a prequel as well, which they kind of...
Is that what this is?
Well, this is a prequel. This is set before Raiders. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's obviously a sequel, but it's a prequel.
Again, unless you know the time that they're doing it, and you wouldn't notice that, right? Like you
only know
instantly
that.
Earmarked.
You only know that because it says at the beginning the date. Yeah.
But if you'd have to,
if you walked into the room 30 seconds too late, you wouldn't give a shit, and that wouldn't matter. So that's not a big deal. That just goes to show.
So this being the sequel, regardless of when the time frame is, the movies that come after it. We're not going to technically talk about them, but acknowledge that when they come after.
Right.
The one that comes after this, Crusades, even the more recent ones, regardless of if they should have even been made or not, that's up for a different debate. They still feel like an Indiana Jones movie, if that makes sense. This one feels like when you said about Rambo 5, and I don't mean like it's a Rambo 5, but this feels like some other kind of adventure movie. But we decided to make Indiana Jones the center because Indiana Jones is an archaeologist, and almost every other movie that we watch, he's out looking for something, right? He goes to the Ark, he's looking for the Ark, finds the Ark. He's looking for the Holy Grail. He's looking for the Dial of Destiny. He's not looking for anything here. He is suddenly just dumped into something and then is forced, for reasons we don't understand, he's forced by this Indian community to go grab this stone that will help their thing. It's almost he's doing it a favor.
Well, no, but I think it's not a normal Indiana Jones movie. But it tugs at the heartstrings, doesn't it? Because it's like there are no children.
True, I know. He feels bad. He feels terrible, and I get it. But it's not what we know of Indiana Jones.
This isn't on the page, right? And this isn't even particularly on screen. But I think the idea of it is, it's kind of like the situation he was placed in that made him the Indiana.
I totally get. No, I get what you're saying, but like I'm saying, like if you were to take this movie out and just
if you were to put this,
they feel like Indiana Jones movies.
All right. What about this? Forget that it's a prequel. If you put this after Raiders,
which we did.
Well, we kind of, we do and we don't.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So if this was a sequel, forget the date, take the date out, it's a sequel to Raiders. This is happening after Raiders. It would seem weird. It wouldn't seem quite the same still.
But because most people don't realize that it's a prequel, it still feels weird.
No, that's what I mean.
You and I now mean,
we're saying the same thing. I'm just saying if the date wasn't there, it's a sequel, and it feels a little bit odd. It doesn't quite gel with what else has come since.
Which then means what happened to Short Round? Well, because it's a prequel, so we're Short Round in the sequels. Like he leaves his poor Asian boy, which I love Short Round. Here's the funny thing. What switched for me as an adult. As a kid, I don't know that I liked Short Round as much. Or I don't remember liking Short Round as much, because maybe as a kid, you're looking up at people that are now your idols, so I'm not looking at another kid. I don't want to be associated with being the kid. I want to be the Indiana Jones character, right?
So I'm not looking at the adults.
And and look, Kate Capshaw is attractive. Like back then, she was pretty hot.
And also in Black Rain, which we discussed.
Yes, we did. And I liked her in When I Was a Kid and the performance. Now watching it a second time. First of all, because Key is an amazing actor now, but I love Short Round and Indiana Jones's bits together better, and I cannot stand Kate fucking Capshaw in this movie. There was that moment in the jungle when they're trying to go to sleep, and the old slapstick, she runs into every possible animal she possibly could in the bush. I fucking was like, oh,
that's where we differ. I kind of like that's lit. Well, no, what I will say,
because she was screaming the whole time.
That is literally the only bit I like of her, though. Is that sketch kind of a
the
sketch,
sexy bit?
It?
I didn't mind, but that was out of left field too. That's why I started to feel like this is a little more James Bond-ish. Like the girl's just gonna fall for Indiana no matter what.
Short Round is not his adopted son or anything. It's just someone who was his right hand man
who picked his pocket.
That was just his right hand.
Short Round saves the day most of the time. He's trying to tell Dr. Jones not to fuck up.
Yeah, it's just his right hand man sidekick in that particular movie. You don't need him in every. Then you don't need him in every movie.
But the way
he doesn't have all that shit
in
every other movie. There's characters come and go. But this is a prequel. Remember, the ones in the later movies.
No, I know.
Look,
I get you. What you're saying.
Let's keep it in perspective.
But what happens is it becomes disjointed film.
It is
because
disjointed.
It's a franchise. Because it's a franchise,
very episodic,
right? Like
this film is just one thing after it.
And some of it you're just kind of like, okay. Like the stakes of the other ones are always, and that's what I love about it, is because when he is actually hunting something down, which at least even in the movie we'll talk about in a few minutes, it may be a retread of what it tried to do in the first movie, but at least it was still doing something where they had to find an artifact or find something. This one was just like, hey, he went to China, stole something for somebody, had to take an antidote, gets on a plane, and is dropped into India kind of thing because they were trying to kill him. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, whoopsie-doo, here we are. We're in here now. We got to get into adventures, whereas opposed to him trying to find things.
I don't want to go up against you because I'm not a big fan. I can just see.
No, I know what you mean, but I'm just saying that the reason that this movie as a sequel feels so weird is it doesn't feel even like a prequel or a sequel. It just feels like
you're
Rambo
right.
5 did.
I totally.
It feels like a different movie, but we just made it Indiana Jones. And maybe if it wasn't Indiana Jones, might feel better.
I totally agree with that, but I feel like at least one thing I always appreciate, and I've said this before about other films, is at least he's in danger. He's not just an indestructible. Yep. Nothing's going to go wrong, so there's no drama. There are moments in the.
No, he gets whipped. He gets captured. He takes a beating.
And again, these are all lessons and things, and he learns to be so sort of in control in the later movies because stuff like this happens way back. But the thing is, you're right. This doesn't really feel like an Indiana Jones movie. This very episodic. It's just one little sketch after another. And he's just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time in this movie. Whereas in the other movies, he's on a mission. Yeah.
Yes. If he's in the wrong place, it's because he picked to go there.
Whereas
he's put himself.
Whereas in the later films, it's all it escalates and goes haywire, of course. But he's got a goal.
He's meant to be there because that's what he
wants.
Meant to be
there. He's got a goal. Whereas in this one, you're right. You get this vibe that it doesn't have to be Indiana Jones in this.
Yeah, his skill set is not is not needed.
No, but I mean, you could have started another thing with another kind of. He could have been the more James Bond guy in Temple of Doom. He does get his whip going and the machete and shit. I do quite enjoy it still. But to be fair, I think Raiders is a fucking masterpiece. So even if I enjoy the other ones, they don't come close to Raiders. It's difficult because there's a lot of errors. There's a lot of things that don't work in this, and that's what kind of holds it. That's what holds it back. I mean, it's not bad filmmaking, obviously. You've got the star power. You've got the star power.
When it came on screen, I felt like I was transported back to these. There's just a filmic quality of Spielberg's stuff from the 80s that feels like film. Like even when it's on video, it almost feels like you're still watching a film. Actual 35 print, and it just the transfer that they get for his, it just felt good. Like it just felt like I was watching the original.
You've got a masterful producer, a masterful director, and you've got Harrison Ford at his peak.
At his peak. How Kate Capshaw went with Steven Spielberg and not Harrison Ford in this?
It's all
I don't
about
know.
the
Maybe
Benjamins,
Harrison's a real dick.
About the Benjamins.
Well, I don't know. Harrison's like the guy. Like he was a debonair man. And he took off his shirt. I was like, I didn't know Harrison Ford had this ability. He was quite. He was pretty for 1984.
Yeah.
He was ripped for 84's
so he was
qualities.
at his peak, and so they're all at their peak at this point, really. So that elevates what is actually a little bit of a disappointment. I'm not going to say it's a major disappointment, but it is a disappointment.
Yeah, like I said, as far as an Indiana Jones movie goes, it's a disappointment. As far as a movie itself,
The standalone.
I mean, the sets are unbelievable. This is how you know good filmmakers. I mean, they populate their sets with so much shit to make it feel authentic and real, as opposed to like when we've talked about some of the movies we do. They're like 5 guys on a set, and you're like, this looks like someone's bathroom. Like, where am I supposed to be, in a spaceship? I mean, like I said, what always got me as a kid. And funny thing is, this is not supposed to be a horror movie. And the one we're going to talk about is supposed to be from a horror series. And there are more horror elements in Temple of Doom than I think at all in The Mummy Returns.
Right.
And you've got the very... Again, is it culturally insensitive, the dinner that they try to make it seem like, or is it supposed to be horror? Is it supposed to be letting us know that we're in the belly of like the beast, and this is just the surface level because they got snake surprise?
I think it is,
and monkey brain soup and all this, and it's just every other thing is just like grotesque. Bats are everywhere. I mean, like almost every scene of them looking in the sky is just this giant flock of bats.
And the
bugs everywhere. When he rips the heart out and he's holding it, I mean, there's a lot of, like, as a kid, there's a lot of horror elements in that first 2/3 of the film, and then the last third is basically, of both films, it's basically. And it's interesting because for two people who do a series on an action star whose films don't have action, it's almost too much action. Like, it's almost like, oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to be excited about anymore. Like, we're just on this chase and this chase and this chase and this chase and this chase. And finally it's like, oh, we're done? And it's like, so it's like a forced run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're kind of like, I'm forced to run 5 miles at gunpoint.
Yeah, but
you make it.
You know, the roller coaster thing is great. And, you know, I remember what...
Michael Bay may have stolen it for... The Rock, because there's no roller coaster underneath the prison. The Rock, may have borrowed that sequence.
That's a tip of the cap to old Spielberg. But that's all. That's all done with miniatures and stop motion, and that's magical and it's great, and it's exciting and it's hilarious and it's really well done. So there's enough. I feel like there is enough and it's done by the best. So
yes, like I said, disappointment as far as this maybe a franchise goes, but not disappointing as far as movie making quality. There's no dip in quality.
Yeah. No, that absolutely. And watching it again, I hadn't seen it for probably. I mean, I've seen it more recently than you, I guess. But that has been a lot.
30 plus years for me, close to 40. No, yeah, maybe even 40.
I probably saw it 5 years ago, I would say. But then before that, maybe 10. So, it's not like something I go back to a lot. I mean, I think there's some films when you've got a trilogy or a franchise, whatever, you'll watch all of them with some films.
Yeah, at one time. But then sometimes you'll just pick the ones you really like in this franchise.
But there's some, but there are some franchises and trilogies where you just like them all. So you will. But this is one where, I mean, we'll get to our ratings of where we place things, but this is not one where I feel the need to watch them all. That's all I'll say at this point.
Oh no, I agree. I agree with you. Yeah. So there's a lot of pluses in the film as a film, but since we're talking about sequels and we're talking about a franchise that's beloved, and as we may be talking in a few minutes, there are some big stumbles, but to me there are 2 giant wins, and then some movies you go, okay, all right, there was an attempt here. But maybe we just didn't have everything we needed to make it all work.
Yeah, I mean, I will watch Temple of Doom again at some point in my life, and I will watch Raiders for definite, probably quite soon, because I just think that is flawlessly made. I don't think it steps a foot wrong, Raiders. I don't think it does anything wrong. I think it's just a very strong, unique.
It's so strong. It's why it makes this one feel so disjointed.
Of course, this is the thing.
And that's it just does. It's such a strong film.
Like you say, you'd probably like this one a hell of a lot more if it wasn't an Indiana Jones movie.
You're probably fucking right.
Yeah.
And we might like Rambo 5 more if it wasn't a Rambo movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if it was something else, if it was a guy trying to break a drug cartel down, we might like it more.
If you make an Indiana Jones movie, you're making a bold statement just merely by trying to compare it to Raiders. You've got your fucking work cut out for you.
Yeah.
And you rarely, very, very rarely succeed in this case.
All right. Well, do we think this film is worthy of being a sequel? I will go first. 3 months in a row for me. I say no. I don't think this is good to be a sequel for the Indiana Jones franchise. That's just me. Again, there's a couple other in the franchise I also don't think belong to be a sequel as a part of the franchise, even though they are. I think that if you remove Temple of Doom, outside of my love for Short Round, you don't miss a thing. There's nothing that elevates the Indiana Jones character. We don't bring anything in. Even the one that would follow this, I mean, we meet his father. Like they add things that make the sequence go. And Indiana Jones is actually trying to find something as an archaeologist. This one is just like he went on vacation, the plane crashed on the way to the fucking Hawaii, and the next thing you know, he's helping somebody find a rock. So for me, it hurts to say it, but I have to say that Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom is not worthy of being a sequel in the Indiana Jones franchise. Mr. Smith, your feelings?
I'm going to say, yes, it's worthy, but only just. And
okay, fair.
I'm kind of making things up in my head to justify it because
It's okay. If you feel it, you feel it.
What I mean is, what I said earlier about, I think this is the film. I choose to look at this film as this is the film where he becomes Indiana Jones.
Okay.
Whether that was their, I'm not saying that was their intention. I enjoy it enough, and I think I look at it that way. I look at it. He's the suave guy in the restaurant. And let's just give a shout out to the sound effects guys who do the punches.
Oh God,
because they sound like cars hitting each other.
Amazing. Yes, these are the movies because there's a lot of punching in Indiana Jones movies, and they're the movies that sound like punching.
I just like to see it as, you know, he can do the suave gentleman thing in the restaurant, but before he knows it, he's out of his element and he's jumping out of an airplane with a fucking inflatable dinghy, and through his adventure and his journey in this film, he becomes who we get in Raiders. So I'm sure you could maybe pick holes in that, but I'll choose.
It's fine.
But although I say it's a worthy sequel, it's only just a worthy sequel. So it only just makes it in there for me, personally.
Now, where I rank this would be number 3. I think Dial and Crystal follow at 4 or 5, and I think all 3 don't belong to be a part of this. Now, I will say to you, I have said this before, I think the greatest one probably made, you're right, is Raiders, but it's 2 for me because my favorite is Crusade, and there's just something about him with Sean Connery and that story, and I don't know what it is. I know it can be blasphemous, and I'm sure I'll take slack from it. That's
you're
okay.
not the only person who said that to me.
I don't have a good reason outside of I just love the two of them together. I don't know. I just love that story and what they're going through. Just a hair more than Raiders. Plus, I was older when I saw Crusade. So I was of an age so I could go see, and I remember I saw Raiders. I had a babysitter that took us to see it, and it was fantastic. But I don't know that I was old enough at 81 to grasp Raiders as much as I was when I saw Crusade. And so maybe that's what it is. But for me, my favorite will always be Crusade. So it's Crusade, Raiders, and then the other 3. If I never see the other 3 again, I would watch Raiders into Crusade. And I think that's the way they should have gone with it because it's a great furthering of the story. We learn about Indiana Jones. We know about his father. It kind of has this great little simpatico thing going on. That we're fighting the Nazis, which I think works because when they tried to do Crystal, they went against the Russians and that fell flat. Like, for whatever reason, Indiana Jones, his enemy is the Nazis. He's beating the Nazis to whatever it is to save the world. That seems to be his thing. And whenever we shift from that, they don't seem to fit. And for me, Crusade and Raiders is why they feel so good. Is it just feels like that's who he's out against to stop and find all these artifacts to keep them from taking over the world. And, you know, for me, I love those 2 movies. They're 2 of the greatest films ever made by Spielberg as far as that series goes. Mr. Smith, what is your order? I think I already know. It's just move Crusade behind Raiders maybe, and then you've got yours.
Right, yeah, pretty much. So I'll go Raiders, Last Crusade, Temple of Doom. I'm going to go Crystal Skull and Dial.
Then Dial? Perfectly fine.
And you know what? I think I'm doing that because I haven't really given it much thought, to be fair. But I think I'm going to do it because Mangold versus Spielberg, there's just no fucking competition.
It's fair.
I'm talking filmmaking-wise.
Yep, no, very fair.
That's not to say.
It's not to say that Steven, like I said, even if Steven makes a film that isn't great, as far as maybe story-wise,
it's still going to be
everything. Yeah. Like, I mean, if you can pick apart the plot, but everything that's in the film is better than most people's work that they can do.
So that's a bit of a backhanded compliment.
I know what you mean. It is a bit of a backhanded compliment, but still, it's a compliment nonetheless.
So I'll
it
go.
Just stings a little.
So yeah, Raiders, Crusade, Temple of Doom, Crystal Skull. But Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny, flush them. I don't give a fuck, really. Them 3 are pretty good, though.
All right, well, that means up next in the blue corner from 2001, it's The Mummy Returns.
It's time for the tale of the tape. The Mummy Returns was released in 2001, written and directed by Steven Sommers, starring Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, Arnold Vosloo, Oded Fehr, Patricia Velasquez, Freddie Booth, and Dwayne Johnson. Made on a budget of $98 million and grossing $435 million at the box office. It holds a 6.4 rating on IMDb, the 46 critic and 63 audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On Letterboxd, Steve gives this 1 star, while Scott gives this 1.5 stars. The mummified body of Imhotep is shipped to a museum in London, where he once again awakens and begins his campaign of rage and terror. In Universal Pictures, The Mummy Returns.
A force more powerful than any the world has ever known is about to be unleashed by the 2 people who should know better.
These guys again?
Next summer, Universal Pictures presents Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, Arnold Vosloo, Oded Fehr, Patricia Velasquez, introducing Freddie Booth, and The Rock as the Scorpion King. The Mummy Returns.
Now, it's my honor to talk about this stellar drop in 2001. And we start with Rachel Weisz and Patricia Velasquez. Apparently, they were not able to find any Egyptian actresses who could act in the role of Egyptian. So we went with a white woman from England and an Hispanic woman to play Pharaoh's women. And they did their own fight sequences without a single stunt performer. So the 2 times the ladies fight, it is all them. There is no lady stunt performer stepping in a la what we get in like Kill Bill. These 2 women spent 5 months training to do their own fight sequences. And that means the flips and everything is pretty fucking impressive.
You can tell.
Oh, you can absolutely tell. But I'm just saying, though, you know, sometimes even when they have the mask on, you might think, okay, well, maybe it's not them. But no, it's 100% them. Now, the much criticized digital effects of the Scorpion King were rushed, no shit, and were only completed 8 days before the film's release. And you can fucking tell. You can fucking tell. And this is the start of what we would get in The Flash almost 2 decades later. Brendan Fraser, back when Brendan Fraser was trying to become a bit of an action star himself, tore a spinal disc, cracked a rib, and injured his knees during production. And even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson suffered from food poisoning and sunstroke. He lost over 10 pounds and said it was the worst he has ever felt in his life at the time. This is also Dwayne Johnson's first big screen appearance that was not related to wrestling. Now, in order to keep his smooth, hairless look, Arnold Vosloo had his entire body shaved twice a day. Originally, he tried waxing but couldn't stand the pain. Twice a day, he had his body shaved. Now, who do you think shaved his body? Men or females? Either way, he wanted people to see him butt naked and shave him twice a day.
I think we know what's going on now.
Yeah, well, we do. I think he may be a silent partner in EFO, but we'll find that out later. In a career choice that will forever haunt him, Freddie Booth, who played their son, was a big fan of The Mummy from 1999, having seen it over 30 times. He loved it so much that he passed on the opportunity to play in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone to participate in this movie because The Mummy is one of his favorite films. He may be one of your favorite films, but you missed out on the cash cow, that being the Harry Potter films. He knows so much about the movie that he even served as sort of a consultant of the first film for this film for the other crew and cast members. He knows every line and detail of the movie. When anyone on the set of The Mummy returned, needed to know something about the first movie, they asked him. This was also his first professional and probably last acting job. Now, before playing a track of his Mummy score during a London concert. This is my favorite one. In 2000, composer Jerry Goldsmith explained how much he hated the film and the production, calling it a piece of shit movie. But unbeknownst to him, the director, Stephen Sommers, was in the audience that night. Therefore, Goldsmith was not called back for the sequel. The sequel takes place almost 10 years later, even though the movies were released 2 years apart. Stephen Sommers joked that he wrote it that way because he didn't want to work with babies, that talking about their son suddenly being 10 or 11, whatever it was. Now, to show that London and the Brits are no different than us in New York, London's Tower Bridge was closed to allow for filming. They were allowed to close it for 20 minutes at a time, but the resulting traffic jam after the first time brought threats of arrest from Scotland Yard and a reduced closing time to 10 minutes. So the Brits don't like traffic any more than we do. Hundreds of real scorpions and tarantulas were used in this film. In the director's commentary for this, writer-director Stephen Sommers expressed that the idea of the Scorpion King keeping stone carving directions of how to kill him with the scepter was ridiculous, and yet it stayed in the film. Oh, after Evie's rescue from the museum, Imhotep summons warrior mummies by saying, "Collect your bones, gather your limbs, shake the earth from your flesh." This is an actual funeral spell from the tomb of Pharaoh Teti of the 6th dynasty. That's pretty impressive. I mean, hey,
I knew that.
I just thought it was something cool to say.
That.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You're being British and going to the museums and all. You being British and stealing all this stuff across the world. Hey. Only in England can you steal everything from everybody and then put it in a museum and call it like a museum and not like, hey, this is the scene of a crime.
Ask for forgiveness, not permission. That's what I say.
When O'Connell blows up the tree that spans the ravine during the pygmy battle, one of the pygmy rides the trunk down in the exact same manner as Slim Pickens rides the bomb down in Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. I did notice that, and I thought, that's pretty cool. I kind of like he said, fuck it, I know I'm dying. In a trivia fact left by a bitter snake lover, in the beginning, Evelyn accidentally kicks a snake towards Rick, which he dodges while giving the line, "Those are poisonous, you know." Besides the fact that snakes are venomous and not poisonous, the snake was a scarlet king snake, which isn't deadly or venomous at all. That is just someone who loves snakes and needs to shut the fuck up, whoever put that on IMDb. Roger Ebert, who awarded the first film 3 stars, gave the second film only 2, saying that the mistake of The Mummy Returns is to abandon the characters and to use the plot only as a clothesline for special effects and action sequences. James Berardinelli of Real Views gave the film 2.5 stars out of 4, calling it hollow, lightweight entertainment, not unpleasant, but far from the summer's definitive action-adventure flick. Kenneth Turin of the LA Times gave the film a positive review, praising it constant plot turns, cheeky sensibility, and omnipresent action sequences. And I think it's the first time we've ever read anything that adds cheeky into it. So thank you very much, Kenneth Turin. Hey, almost took us 30-plus episodes. Renee Rodriguez of the Miami Herald said 12-year-olds weaned on Nintendo may not mind, but anyone who remembers the tactile thrill of an alarmingly real boulder rolling down on Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark will be left cold. And James Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal gave the film a negative review, saying that it has all of the clank, but none of the swank of the previous version. Memories of seeing this. I do remember The Mummy, and also this is based on a horror from Universal. This is a horror franchise.
Yeah.
I think it's meant to lean into horror, but there are very few. I mean, outside of it being monsters, they're not very scary. Like maybe the first Mummy, when we first see the scarabs, that was fucking freaky. Like the first Mummy had more horror than I think the ones following this.
Right.
After you see the scarabs the first time, when they pop out again, you're like, okay, yeah, I've seen this. And nothing very scary about this one. And so I'm sure I want to see it. And these movies, these 3 actually make about 400 million. Like, I remember I told you about our movies last month when we did The Equalizer. The Equalizer made like 190 each. These, almost all of them made 400 million a piece.
Right.
Even the one that came 7 years after this, even though this one, much like we talked about with our last movie, may not have been a great sequel, it still brought people out to see. I mean, well, hell, Dial of Destiny, it's the biggest grossing movie, or not Dial, Crystal Skull is the biggest grossing franchise movie for that. Almost $800 million. Like, it almost makes more than the 3,
I know,
the first 3. It's
well,
insane.
You've got to factor in inflation.
Well, probably because there's a thirst
and
for
there's
it, and
inflation,
you think, we're never going to see it again. Yeah, that's true.
I hadn't seen this before.
Really?
No.
Okay, so there you go.
The Mummy, I remember really liking The Mummy.
Yeah, so do I. So I was kind of excited about this when we put it together. I have a good idea how this is going to close out. And I think in my mind, I thought I wasn't a big fan of Temple. And in my mind, I think maybe The Mummy Returns is going to be the better film. And we're going to talk a little bit.
We'll get to that, yeah. But yeah, so I hadn't seen this, but I think I didn't watch it because I saw a still of the Scorpion King, right? So, but the first Mummy, I remember going to see it at the cinema, and I remember coming out thinking, you know what? For the kind of movie it is, that was pretty damn entertaining.
Brendan Fraser's pretty good.
You know?
Brendan Fraser's still good in this.
Oh yeah,
I think he does a decent
he is
job.
not the problem with this movie by a fucking mile.
No, and he doesn't try. They may dress him up in one scene to be.
Well,
there's
no,
a couple of
even the
slaps
music,
in Indiana Jones,
obviously.
which is fun. But he doesn't try to be Harrison Ford. He tries to be something a little different than Harrison Ford as far as his character. I would actually say he's a little more like Han Solo, as we always hear about. He's someone who can't be trusted because
as well, isn't he? He doesn't really want.
He's more Han Solo than he is Indiana Jones in this film.
He's a reluctant action hero. He doesn't. He would look, get the bracelet and let's get the fuck out of it. He's not like.
Yeah, he's more like, I will shoot things. I don't really care about digging shit up. Like, I really don't care about finding these fucking antiques.
But yeah, so this was a new one. I haven't seen any of the others, and I never fucking will now.
Although the other one did pretty well.
I don't care
because Jet Li is the one who plays the.
I didn't even know
Dragon
that until
Emperor or whatever.
Brought it all up. Surprisingly, the little kid's not very annoying.
Not very annoying, but so this film, and I didn't know we were going to be so simpatico. This film.
He's less annoying than Kate Capshaw.
True, but does this movie not a little bit lean on some of Temple?
Oh, of course.
We like suddenly we add a kid in, just like Temple of Doom does. Now the girl's more of a love interest this time. I mean, actually, the girl's kind of the Indiana Jones. He's just like the sidekick, like, you know, a Brendan Fraser's
they're
character.
Married now and that's their kid and whatnot. But he's not as annoying as I thought he was going to be. I don't think kids should be in movies ever.
Well, if they're going to be in a movie, be good in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? Like be good like Julia Butters. Be good.
I mean, to me, in discussion, conversation, Mummy movies are just rip-offs of Indiana Jones anyway. That's how I would describe them to anyone.
Well, yeah, the new ones. Obviously, the other ones came out before Indiana Jones.
But I mean, they're different
yeah.
though. But they're not even really in the same. From the 30s, the Mummy in the old Mummy movie is one of the most boring films I think I've ever seen. So yeah, these films to me, I'm just like, well, these are just pale imitations of Indiana Jones. Although, like I say, I remember I came out to seeing the Mummy, and I thought for an updated version of Indiana Jones, that was pretty good, pretty entertaining movie. But they're just not. The Mummy is not a film I've got a particular affection for or anything like that. So, and I think I saw a still for the second one and just thought, fuck that, I don't want to see that. So I watched it like 2 nights ago, and to be honest with you, I fucking hated it, really. I did not like it at all. I found it hard work. And when I saw the running time was over 2 hours.
The only saving grace for this film is the action sequences are decent. Like, they have some good action sequences. They go at action different than Indiana Jones does. Indiana Jones, like we said, it's the beloved homage from Spielberg and Lucas towards the swashbuckling, the space adventures, the serial TV shows, the action adventures of their youth. And so in those, this is before violence is raised up in cinema. A lot of punching. Indiana Jones punches a lot of people. Rarely shoots people. Hits them, but there's a lot of punching. In this, it's a lot of shooting. And sometimes, because it's PG-13, the shooting is like, so that one guy's got a Tommy gun shooting down at them and doesn't hit anybody, but perfectly hits the stuff that needs to explode. I'm thinking, they're sitting ducks with a Tommy gun. This is a video game. I've killed every single person on that floor in 10 seconds, and I moved on to the next thing I have to do. That being said, the bus chase sequence is exciting. Like they have some things that make the plot go. The battle, I could give 2 shits about. Like, I don't need a fucking battle like it's Braveheart in this kind of movie. I don't give a fuck you fighting the desert dogs. It's cool, but I'm saying, but after all, I'm like, I'm here for this. I want this. We don't need the Star Wars
the epic
3
shit you don't need.
Fights going on
the
at
sort
once.
Of epic kind of.
At least with Indiana Jones, they were like, Lucas was like, look, I'm not going to give the 3-act finale where like there's the space battle, there's the Jedi battle, there's another battle all going on at once. We cut between it. That's what Mummy did at the end of it. It's like, I don't need to know the 27 battles. I want this. Just leave me here. Fight the PS2 graphic Scorpion King. It's come alive. And let's leave it here. Because I don't care about the rest of the stuff.
For a film this dumb to be so confusing, because there were points in this film where I was thinking, I don't really know what's going on. I don't really know what the end game is. I don't really know what
we're thrown into something. We see the Scorpion King, so we go, okay, it's about the Scorpion, but we don't know why she's at there. Also, she's having, like, we're told she has visions, and now all of a sudden she's the reincarnated daughter of a former, like what the fuck are you talking about? I mean, you're white British.
Just throw them in, you should, they should have just been thrown into another Egyptian adventure. That was all. But instead,
or we could at least known why they're getting this bracelet. Right, like, because we just show up and they just got the bracelet. It's maybe one of the easier bracelet or gathering of any kind of archaeological artifact we've ever seen in any of these. It's harder for Nicolas Cage to get the Declaration of Independence than it was for her to steal this bracelet that brings about the doom of mankind. Like, it just feels like that should have been harder. Like, even getting the Ark of the Covenant or getting the
Grail.
The Grail, like, there's like a whole, and that's, I think, what made those two movies fun, is Indiana Jones has to decipher ancient artifacts for stuff. And I will notice this. It doesn't matter what movie it is. It seems like whatever civilization is trying to hide something, the peak of their engineering and technological advances is all the traps they set so people can't get to it. Famine, everything else just falls to the wayside. They're like, listen, we got to hide this artifact.
In such a way.
And it's got to be in such a way that nobody, and I mean nobody, fucking gets in here and gets this
I know
thing.
none of us have eaten in 2 months, but...
Exactly. There's such an elaborate trap set. You kind of like, well, and then like they peaked, like, okay, man, you did this. That was a great job. What do we do now? He goes, that's it for me. We have to wait for somebody else to come along. They took everything out of me to come up with this elaborate scheme. I'm done. No matter what you name the movie, even in the one where they hide the Declaration of Independence, because the first movies are so, you're like, Jesus Christ, this is like amazing how they find out these clues. And then after that, they're like, they realize even as writers are like, geez, where do we go from here? Like we
That made me laugh actually because the Rock's is in the movie at the beginning, right? And then
yes, actually in the movie at the beginning.
Actually him. And then I thought, oh, it may be they do the shitty CGI in the third movie, and then that's bad. That is bad.
Well, it's finished 8 weeks. What, they did in 8 weeks or whatever.
Well, that shows, but
yes,
but that was bad.
Bad. Especially when you watch Imhotep in the beginning of the movie. Look, it's 2001, so I also am under the impression. I understand 2001.
2001
we're 24
CGI
years past
is,
that. Hey, it looked pretty impressive. I mean, she's making out with him, and it looks like she's making out with him, even though you can tell it's a CGI person.
Well, of course, but still, some of it is okay. But then the
dogs in the fight look better.
But the Zeppelin thing and the water. Some of that was entry level shit.
This was just a video game. Like, it works in a video game because in a video game you just know you're going from level to level. You really don't care. There's always an objective you have to get to. You make the objective, you go to the next level, and you don't really think about it when you're playing a video game. But in a movie, you think about it.
But then in their defense, maybe that was the best they could do at the time. I'll give them that, maybe.
Well, it also shows, similar to what I think about with Temple, when you make a boatload of money, people go, we got to make something. And it gets greenlit. And then you don't have an idea prior. And now you're cobbling together an idea. The whole point is they're going to have this, Imhotep going to have to fight against the Scorpion King. So they make up some lore of the Scorpion King. And they grab the Rock and he does it because he's popular at the time. Like his trajectory is starting in that moment. Just in the wrestling world, he's becoming one of the most popular wrestlers at the time. So, where he's become now, it starts there. Like this is where he launches. The movie's not great, but it's the beginning of what we now will become to know as Dwayne Johnson. So you've got all this stuff you're going to put together. And then all of a sudden, they're just there in a temple. And they've got a kid with them for some reason. And none of that is explained. And we're just meant to go, oh, we're here. And they're doing this. And 3 guys are trying to track them down. And we don't know why. You're just kind of thrown into it. And then it's like, well, are we bringing the mummy back? Are we trying to get the Scorpion King? Like, why do we need them? I thought we got him. The events don't make sense at all. Like, at least when they go in the third one, that's not a very good movie either. But at least they go somewhere else. They go over to Asia, right? Like, so they eventually go over to China, and now they're trying to dig up some artifact over there, which at least you go, okay, at least we moved on to something else. And this one, I think the best moment of the film is the 2-girl fight. The thing that looks the best is when they fight in ancient Egypt with the Sais against each other. Like, that is the best looking moment. That is the most realistic moment in the entire film. Outside, maybe the bus thing was just kind of fun, but I guess her brother suddenly knows how to drive a bus like he's in NASCAR or F1. Like,
well, that's by the by. I mean, I didn't mind the dog soldier things. I didn't mind.
In the beginning, I don't mind it, but then the second time when they fight him, and it's like it's an ancient thing that's been brought to life, and they're not real anyways. But as long as you have one of their swords and you hit them in the head like they're a zombie, they just die. And it's like they turn to sand quickly. You're kind of like,
I know. I'm trying to find something positive.
Doesn't really seem like they're
I'm just
that
trying
big
to
of a
find
threat
something
in my
positive
opinion.
in all this, because honestly,
Rachel Weisz was something nice to look at. Imhotep's girl was nice to look at.
If I want something nice to look at, I'll put some porn on. I don't need.
I get you. I know. You wanted something to look at,
like that,
to talk
obviously,
about.
But but I didn't mind like you say, the kind of the epic sort of Braveheart battle with the dog thing. dog soldier things. And I thought that was, at that point, I was like, oh, at least I'm getting some eye candy other than coos, you know. But my heart sunk when the when the Scorpion King showed up. I was like, and he actually looked more like a lobster than a scorpion. That was another thing.
Well, how weird was it when the guy puts his arm in there? It's like this metallic thing. I'm like, when did the Egyptians have like I said, whoever built these things, they put all of their technology, all of their wealth and resources went to building elaborate traps to keep these mythical figures under wraps. That's why Egypt never peaked. That's why it's still a desert. They just did this. That was it. That's all they had. Just is like, what is happening here? How is that metallic? How is the thing he's trapped in look better than him when he comes out of it? That's what I want to know. Explain this to me.
Yeah, so I mean, the little kid I didn't know was going to be in it, and when I saw him, my heart sunk. Because I thought this kid is going to annoy the piss out of me. And to be honest with you, he could have been worse. And then it's just a farce, and it's just stupid. And I don't feel like Brendan Fraser really got enough to do in this movie.
No, he just was shooting.
We need a punch up and some guns.
It was the girl and the son became the focal point.
Yeah,
of
which
this
is
film.
not good.
The bad guys are always showing up at the last second. We never see them, and also they're there to kidnap somebody. It's kind of like, come on.
Yeah. So it was for me, it was just a real slog, and I can't.
And there's a lot of
I can't
action.
say this is even my preferred genre. It's not really. You know, when it comes to action adventure, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark. But that one movie though,
like we said before we recorded, or maybe I said it earlier. I think the first ones are always good. Mummy, good film. Raiders of the Lost Ark, good film. The first National Treasure, good film. The sequels, for most of them, they can't live up to the original, and then they have some kind of half-assed, concocted thing that they never really came up with, and so they don't ever meet the level of what we're expecting.
Yeah.
And this one is just, it's all fluff. It's a lot of action sequences that just are, put together. We're just like, hey, the mummy's going to come back, and then we're going to take everyone on an adventure across Egypt, and we're going to land and finally find this hidden temple that no one could find of the Scorpion King, and we're going to have him fight in a PlayStation 2 style battle.
Yeah, one of the problems with this movie is 70% CGI, and it's bad CGI.
Even for 2001 standards.
Yeah, so if if it was 20% CGI and bad CGI, you can kind of let it slide. You know, well, it's 2001, they weren't there yet. But the one thing you're not very good at is 70% of your movie, so that it doesn't stand much of a chance, really, does it? Kind of entertaining you, because I was not entertained. Are you not entertained? No, I'm fucking not entertained, Mr. Crow.
Like I said, the only enjoyable moment, I really enjoyed the 3000 BC fight between the two ladies, dressed very scantily. It was the most believable action we had in the film, the most believable scene we had in the film, and everything else was, while explosions and gunfire and exciting as far as visually watching, there's no story. There just was no real story.
That was all a bit old hat, wasn't it? We'd seen that a million times. That's not.
Yeah. After I just kind of go, okay. That's similar how I felt at the end of Temples. Like, this is taking us an hour to end this chase, and the same thing here. Okay, now we're gonna run through the desert. We're gonna get him right inside the temple just as sunrise. It's like all the same old tricks.
Well, just before they get on the bus, when you've got the four, they were pretty cool. You needed more of that.
I like that whole segment.
Yeah, you needed more of that. That they seem to do really well.
Yeah, the bus sequence and the girl fight was probably my two favorite moments of that. That was like, okay, because they had a beginning and an end.
Yeah. Yeah, that was probably the highlight for me, actually, was probably the bus chase, really.
And if you just forget about the fact that this guy's a debonair douchebag driving the bus like he's fucking the greatest driver ever,
well,
it's not that bad. I mean, look, we got four mummies chasing him, so if I can't let that slide.
The mummies I was fine with, but he wouldn't be able to drive that well.
It's like that new meme out there where they're talking about how Vincent Vega's upset about a $5 milkshike, but just dropped $5,000 on heroin. You know what I mean? It's just like,
I never really thought about that before.
Yeah, exactly. He said, $5 milkshake. All right, Mr. Smith. Do you believe that this film is worthy of being a sequel?
No, it's not even worthy of being a movie.
Yes, I would echo your sentiment.
I can't, honestly. I'll have to leave it to you to kind of grade it up against other mummy movies as this. I've only seen these two.
Well, there's only three, and you haven't missed out. I'm not talking
and
about
you're saying the third one is
I
Jet
agree
Li.
with you. With Jet Li, yes.
Wow.
And even that drops the ball. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not worthy of being a sequel. Probably, I mean, unlike where Temple, I didn't feel was, but at least Temple could have been it's a movie in and of itself. I just don't think it's an Indiana Jones movie. This one, like you said, doesn't deserve to be really a movie at all.
Yeah, almost like that was really made by the same guy who made the first one.
I know. And that's the other thing. It's made by the same guy. It's just, there's a lot missing. There's a lot of things missing.
That showed a lot of promise, that first one.
I agree. That's why I hadn't remembered this one. I remembered the bus chase sequence and some other things. I thought, I think I might like this movie more. That is not the case. That was not the case. Now, ranking it, it's simple. They go in the order they came out. Mummy, and then the other two don't deserve to be in there, but Returns is better than Dragon, and that's not saying a whole lot. Honestly, it really isn't saying a whole lot.
Let's go to the card.
All right, now it is time for us to sort through the debris and decide who the winner of our action-adventure sequel showdown is, and we start with Best Action Sequences.
Best action sequences.
Now, it's maybe the only time I say this name. For me, even though I just said it wasn't deserving to be a movie, the action sequences, for me, I thought were a little bit better. It's more in my taste. I'm not a big fan of the old punch him in the face, that's all it is kind of action. That's just for me, right? If it's not a boxing movie, I'm not expecting Rocky to pull out a machine gun and shoot Drago. However, that would have been quite a twist. That had pulled a little twist in Rocky 4 where I was saying he's like, bang, shoots him in the face. And if I can change, you can change. I just changed his face into a pizza. But I'm gonna go with The Mummy Returns because it was all action and some of it was pretty decent as far as just being an action movie. For action sequences, I like the bus chase. I like the girls fighting. I think that's better than most of the action sequences that I felt. Doom is a very kiddie action, punch people in the face, a lot of laughed kind of action, kind of comical action. So for me, I enjoyed The Mummy Returns, and you may not hear me say that name again, but Mummy Returns, I give you 1 point for this. So your decisions.
So I think the beginning of Temple of Doom in the nightclub, that alone is better than any action sequence in The Mummy Returns. And on top of that, we've got the awesome kind of cable car roller coaster ride. You've got the jumping out of the airplane sequence. So I'd have to go with Mr. Spielberg on this. I think the action sequences were better and plentiful in Temple of Doom. I would say there's a bigger quantity of action sequences in The Mummy Returns, but I think they're of a higher quality for me in Temple of Doom. So I'm going to go with Temple of Doom on this one.
All right.
Best supporting characters.
For best supporting characters, while The Mummy Returns may have more characters that we interact with than necessarily we do in Temple of Doom, and while Kate Capshaw is annoying while hot to look at, I really enjoy Short Round. For me, that's all I need. Short Round for me is the better character than any of the other people in the other film. I'm not sure who the leads are in the other film because it's supposed to be Brendan Fraser. Rachel Weisz takes over and so is the son, and Brendan Fraser kind of becomes a supporting character. And I could care less about any other character in that film. I really could care less about most of the people in that film. For me, the Short Round and Harrison Ford, and even Kate Capshaw in certain moments when she wasn't fucking yelling, I enjoyed. And like you said, in the opening, I love the guys at the club. Dan Aykroyd shows up as the So for me, Temple of Doom, I will remember them longer than anyone else. So for me, it's Temple of Doom is the best supporting characters.
Yeah, again, I'm going to have to go with Temple of Doom. I think the chemistry between Harrison Ford and Indy and Short Round is great. Kate Capshaw is annoying when she's screaming, but she's easy on the eye, and gentlemen prefer blondes. I mean, really, it's those three, isn't it?
It's literally those two.
I think she's great
it's those
in
two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but she's great in it.
Agreed. I'm not saying she's just annoying when she yells.
Yeah, her character is annoying, but then, she's a nightclub singer and suddenly she's in India surrounded by bugs and snakes.
And her granddaughter shows up later on in a nightclub in Japan with the Yakuza in Black Rain. It's a whole...
Exactly.
It's an we didn't even know they were connected.
This is the tapestry of Hollywood,
The threads. The threads, as you didn't know. Yeah.
So, hold on to your potatoes, Dr. Jones. I'm going to
fucking love Short Round. Just Short Round alone beats anything else in the other movie.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to go with Temple of Doom on that one.
Funniest moments.
And now, funniest moments. This is also a slam dunk. There was attempts at humor in The Mummy Returns. I know there was. And this is not a slap at Brendan Fraser, but Harrison Ford, when he plays a swarmy guy who may or may not possibly be a douchebag, but also may not be a douchebag, like he walks that line, he is great. He's funny as Indiana Jones. He's funny as fucking Han Solo. He just knows how to play that kind of character. And Short Round, the chemistry between them and the back and forth, the banter and the stuff he says, like, it's hard not to pick Temple of Doom. Like, you have to be a laugh riot in another movie to outdo what Harrison Ford does in the Indiana Jones movies. The whole point is him even making mistakes, and like even when he's angry, it can be funny. So hats off. The man is a master at that, and for me, it's Temple of Doom.
I think the problem with The Mummy Returns in this respect is they give Brendan Fraser all the wrong things to do. You know, he's trying to be funny and Mr. Action all the time. That's like, oh, we need to find something for Brendan Fraser to do, so we need a punch up here, and we need a quip, give it to him. You know, he's kind of like he's sidelined a bit.
Well, they try some of that, the humor, like I said, he's Han Solo. So like Han Solo will bring up stuff in the movies about doing the Kessel Run, like these running jokes, but the way he delivers it is funny. And he's trying to have this conversation with his black friend there, who's the pilot, and we're supposed to like be in on this joke and stuff, but it doesn't land.
It's a bit weird.
It just doesn't land like it does in other films.
But in Temple of Doom, I mean, even one of my favourite bits of Temple of Doom is when Short Round and Indy are going to get crushed, and Willie Scott is trying to find the lever to.
Yes.
And Indy pokes his head through and just says, "We are going to die," and then he pulls that face, and that always makes me smile and always makes me laugh. So, I mean, even that moment alone, there's others, but that moment.
Well, even the moment where they're going to try to have sex with each other and they're going to each other's rooms, you're going to be coming to my room, and they're both sitting there looking at the clock. It's great.
Scene, that little sketch is great with the kind of.
That's the best that she's in the film. That's like that moment's the best she is in the film.
She's the most gorgeous in that scene as well. So yeah, the funny shit is all in Temple of Doom for me.
Most original plot.
All right, more original plot. Now, again, this is going to be like a broken record, but the reason I'm going to pick Temple of Doom is because it's not an Indiana Jones movie. It's a movie about someone else helping this team out, but we just put Indiana Jones in it. So if I go with every other Indiana Jones movie, it's the one time that he's actually not on an archaeological find trying to save the world from someone who's trying to ruin, like the Nazis or the Russians trying to find something to take over the world, where the Mummy is just the Mummy Part 2, where we bring the Mummy back, but this time to make him less a powerful character, he's got to take on some other mythical beast that's coming back in the year of the Scorpion. So it's just the Mummy bringing back some other things, where I'm not a huge fan of Temple of Doom, but I can be honest with myself, it's a more original plot because it's not technically the standard Indiana Jones film that we're used to. What Indiana Jones does, he does something different. He actually helps people without finding any. I mean, yes, it's still an archaeological thing they put into it, but even then, he wasn't there to look for it. He just understood what it was and he wanted to help them. So for me, I will pick Temple of Doom due to that fact.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Temple of Doom, and because he's thrown into this situation, and I think in this film he learns that a museum isn't necessarily the best place to put something, right? Which comes up again with Last Crusade.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The one time he does put it in a museum, it just gets fucking shelved in a warehouse, and that's the Ark of the Covenant. So in this, I think there's enough to it. Like we're witnessing who Indiana Jones really is, and like I say, he learns a lesson that it's not necessarily the best place to put something in a museum. These people need it, and and he's freed all the kids, and it's a more family. Ironically, it's a more family friendly thing. Yet that's why it's uneven, because it's this. Indy, Mr. Hero rescues the kids, but you've got beheadings and people getting their hearts ripped out, and it's all a bit fucked up. But so sorry, I'm going to go with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Not to be mistaken with his brother in the earlier scene, Minneapolis Jones.
No.
When he was the
in
James
the
Bond guy.
Best action hero.
Now, best action star. Brendan Fraser was set up to possibly win this category because he does a lot more action than even Indiana Jones does. But he's the only there for the action, and that's
a problem.
And he's got other people, so he's got another guy helping him out. And so Indiana he's the only action star in the film for his, because Kate Capshaw's character, as we've said, she is a woman who just happens to be kind of literally basically abducted by Indiana Jones and taken on this ride against her will. And she's a lounge singer. And then Short Round's his short sidekick, and he does some action, but we can't call him the star because, he can't do everything that Indiana Jones does. The other film had an opportunity for Brendan, because in the first film, Brendan Fraser is the action star in The Mummy. It's him. And in this one, Rachel does, Rachel's fierce in this. She actually does better action sequences than him. He just runs around and shoots people and says a few words. And I feel bad for Brendan Fraser in that respect, because I think this is supposed to be his franchise. And it really shifts, unfortunately. I don't know if he notices that in that first one or in that second one. He's really kind of sidelined. So for me, again, it's got to be Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Mr. Smith.
I mean, before I saw The Mummy Returns, I thought, this is going to be interesting, because I remember him being great in The Mummy. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know what's going to happen here. But look, all he does in The Mummy Returns is action, and it's not even very good action.
And he's not the hero of the day either all the time either, because he's got that other guy.
Yeah, I mean, and let's face it, Indiana Jones is one of the most iconic action heroes in cinematic history.
Yes.
So, Indiana Jones is just an icon that cannot be matched. And Brendan Fraser is no fucking Harrison Ford, I'm afraid. And that movie.
No, but if we put The Mummy up against this, maybe. But we're doing sequels, so maybe head-to-head movie, Brendan Fraser in the first one might have had more exciting things to do and be more of the hero than we get from this film.
Perhaps. But in the grand scheme of things, Indiana Jones is the man, and he can't be beat. And no fucking 8 Mummy movies are no match for Indiana Jones. And that's just the way it is.
It's true.
That's just the way it is. I don't write the rules. I just abide by them.
We watched the films, and this is when it came out.
Yeah,
it's the litmus test.
The better movie.
All right, and finally, the better movie. If you folks don't know where this is fucking headed, then you need to put your heads out of your asses. I'm going to go on a limb and say we've both ticked the Temple of Doom. Like I have said, and my friend has said before, when we talked about Rambo 5, when we were kind of discussing, he put that in his movie not to watch. Temple of Doom is a movie that is an adventure movie, but it was for somebody else. We just happened to put Indiana Jones in it. That being said, it's still a much better film than whatever The Mummy Returns is. And I feel bad because, like you did say, The Mummy, the first one, I really enjoyed. So I actually was thinking in my head, and this is what happens when you get older. You hold on to the bits you remember, and you fill in the rest. And it was selective memory. And I was like, maybe The Mummy Returns is better than the original Mummy. This might be a really good battle. I might actually like The Mummy Returns more than Temple of Doom. Well, 5 minutes into the film, I was like, there's no fucking way. I was like, there's no way. It was a slog 5 minutes in. I thought, oh God, I already don't like this movie. I've got another 2 hours to go.
Yeah.
It was hard to get through last night, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oof. When they got done, I looked at my phone, that was fucking dog shit. So, Temple of Doom, hands down the better movie in my opinion. And Mr. Smith, I'm going to go on a limb, so you're going to go 6 for 6. I'm just going to go. If you'd be great, you're like, you know what, Scott, though, I've been sitting here thinking, even though I've said all those horrible things, I still think the craftsmanship from Steven Sommers, fuck that guy.
Ford, fuck Spielberg, and motherfuck George Lucas. No, Temple of Doom, and I feel like The Mummy Returns is just all over the place. And I don't think anything in it is done very well. And I didn't know. Like I say, the opening sequence of Temple of Doom is better than anything in The Mummy Returns. Because as soon as I put The Mummy Returns on, I was like, oh, this is not going to be good, is it? This is not how I haven't seen The Mummy in years, but I remember I've got fond memories. I don't think I'll ever watch this again, know. And
if I'm watching this again, I've been tortured.
In the defense of The Mummy Returns, you're up against Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and Harrison Ford.
True.
So
I don't think The Mummy Returns could beat Crystal Kingdom or Dial. And those two films don't need to exist either. I would imagine,
from what I can remember, the opening of Dial of Destiny is pretty great too. Yeah. I wouldn't say the same about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I don't think. Well, although I don't know. The thing is, Indiana Jones, like I said earlier, Indiana Jones is such a fucking icon. You just want to see him do anything, like James Bond, because through history, the opening of any James Bond movie is a great action set piece. That is how until they rebooted with Casino Royale and they took it very gritty. Espionage stuff. Whereas usually he is hanging out of an aeroplane with no parachute and 5 people with nunchuckers or something and a fucking nuclear bomb strapped to his balls and whatnot.
As you do.
You always get that at the beginning of a James Bond movie. And I think the Indiana Jones, that's what they did the same pattern. Like the opening of every Indiana Jones movie is pretty amazing.
It's a good cold open.
Set piece. And the Mummy Returns, they didn't even think to do that, really. So Temple of Doom is in no way one of the better Indiana Jones movies, but it's a mile better than any fucking Mummy movie, and that's just the way it is. That's the way the dice have fallen, and that is just, you're up against the creme de la creme of movie making. You've got no chance. You've got no chance.
And the winner is Steve scores the Showdown 6-0 in favor of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, while Scott scores it 5-1 also in favor of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And the winner by unanimous decision is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
So there you have it. Another sequel showdown in the books. We've got 2/3 of our season done. We've got a third to go. 4 big ones coming up. 4 big sequel showdowns to close out season 3. I'm very excited about it. Now be sure to check us out on our socials in the coming days for our monthly gourmet and horseshit recommendations, along with our latest inductees into our top 100 underrated films of all time. So from the Cheeky Bastards here at the Men of Action Podcast, have yourselves a lovely start to fucking spring. And we'll see you cocksuckers next month.
That will do it for another action-packed movie showdown. Now you can join in on the debate and let us know who you had as the winner of this month's head-to-head cinematic battle by following the show on all its socials. Those links can be found in our show notes. And be sure to join us again in 2 weeks for our latest episode of Dropping a Bruise, available, just like this podcast, exclusively on the Last of the Action Heroes Podcast Network, where you can find other amazing shows dedicated to such iconic action stars as Stallone, Lundgren, Van Damme, Schwarzenegger, and Seagal. The link to the network can also be found in the show's notes. We hope you drop in again next month as we pit 2 sci-fi action sequels against one another, as 1990's RoboCop 2 squares off against 1990's Predator 2 for sequel supremacy. So until then, stay explosive, my friends.
This has been a Man with an Exceptional Beard production.